Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the latest episode of the PodComics webcast. I am your host, David. As promised in the minisode, this episode features Alex Norris, who makes Dorris McComics. In addition, Alex has also created two different series, one called How to Love, which has completed for Webtoon, and he has just started a new project called webcomicname, and I believe it updates every single weekday, Monday through Friday. You can follow him on Facebook and Twitter, and you can read all of his comics at DorrisMcComics.com. So, without any further ado, my interview with Alex in 3, 2, boop. Alex Norris of Dorris McComics. Did I say that right? Do you say McComics or Dorris McComics? Where's the emphasis?
So in my accent, I say Dorris McComics. McComics.
Kind of like Dorris makes comics.
Yeah, I think it was. So as well, if we're talking about the name.
Mm-hmm.
So the McComics. So I used to read this comic called The Beano.
Yeah.
Do you know it? It's sort of like an English, what all of the British kids read, and it's actually based in Scotland, like the headquarters. And when I was growing up, that was always I wanted to write for The Beano. And the joke in The Beano was if you have a generic name, it was always something muck, and then so it'd be like for example, there was recently about in the news. There was
Bodie McBoatface.
Bodie McBoatface. So just a generic name. So Dorris McComics. Yeah, that's what I was going for. And Dorris, just a kind of lame name, a bit like Monty Python, I guess. Monty Python just named. They thought, let's just name our group just a sort of a funny sounding name, like a person. So
did you choose Dorris because it rhymes with Norris?
I think, yeah. So I was trying to remember that whole process. I think it was that, so at school, people sometimes call me Dorris because I have a funny last name.
Norris isn't very funny.
Sorry, Norris?
What's funny about Norris?
I don't know, it just sounds a bit dorky. I don't really know. I think it's one of those inherently funny names, like a bit like Norman or something. Anyway, people just call me Dorris. And then when I first started doing comics, I was like, cool, I'm going to have a sort of persona, which is going to be Dorris McComics. I'm going to be like an old lady who writes weird comics. Yeah. And then basically kind of gave up on that idea, but the name stuck.
It really worked when you were doing How to Love, because it was you called it like an agony aunt sort of. Sure. And just the idea that, Dorris McComics is now giving love advice, it really did kind of become an old woman at the newspaper.
Yeah, I'm glad that kind of, because I was trying to kind of salvaging the kind of weirdness of the fact that the idea kind of never going to go anywhere, of the Dorris McComics thing. And I also love the idea the kind of idea was that Dorris McComics, who's like my webcomic, was then writing, because whenever you saw Dorris McComics, it was an actual book.
No, I'm afraid I never saw a book.
Yeah, basically, I just throw it in there sometimes. It was an idea that I never really went with as much.
Hang on.
Like a book.
Repeat that. There was a book in the comic.
So, How to Love, my agony aunt column, was giving advice, and I thought, it'd be nice if there was an author figure in this, because I called, like an author figure that you can sort of, connect with and feel like they're giving you advice. Well, then I thought, the name under How to Love on the website is Dorris Comics, so that would be the name of the agony aunt. So I thought, I'll make it into a book. Dorris Comics is a book, as in like a comic, like a book of comics.
Yeah.
Who is my other webcomic writing this current comic? Do you know what I mean?
It's sort of your cup of tea there, the meta. Do you get that a lot?
Yeah, I get that quite a lot. Just that the kind of comment. So meta. That's just so meta.
Well,
I guess it is.
We were gonna have to say that at some point in time, but I went through all your comics today and I actually found a lot of other themes which I had not noticed because I hadn't read them in bulk.
Sure.
But okay, that explains the name. You're satisfied with that?
That'll do for an explanation. I'll probably, if you ask me again some other time later, I'll probably tell you a different story.
All right, I'll have to wait one question and I'll come back to it.
Sure.
Dorris McComics.
Yes.
Okay. I like to ask people about the name because the name sort of, it's important.
It is. And I think webcomic names are funny because unlike a sort of, a TV show or a brand that has a team of people behind it, and then they go, right, is this name really, is this what we represent, and then people present, they put the name out there, and often, like myself, just go, oh god, what's this name that I've attached to my comics, and then they have to live with it, and so we end up having these weird things that don't really that have no attachment to the comics they're currently making, which I love.
So you picked it because it was kind of like Monty Python, just sort of a silly. It sounded like a silly person.
Yeah, and I like a person's name, and I quite like. I kind of like this treatment of a kind of work of art as a person. I think it's like a theme that comes up at least in the comics I'm kind of writing behind the scenes. It's like this kind of thing of like. Having a real relationship to a work of art, like a person. So I think I kind of laid that element there just to kind of play with later. I think when I do Dorris McComics book, that'll be one of the central themes is Dorris McComics being a physical kind of person you're reading.
You should really get like a photograph of an old woman and put it on the back, like.
Yeah. Well, this is like if I I've been talking about doing a book for ages. Basically, I don't want it to be just like a collection of comics, but I would love, one of the things I'd love to play with is this like author figure, because I realised that I was quite distant from my comics. I'm not in them, and people don't really know what gender I am, and I quite like that. I quite like this kind of mystery, which I think I went in with from the outset because of the whole Dorris McComics old woman thing. In the book, I think I'm going to have like several author figures who are all those kind of different kind of author figures, and then they'll all be in the about the author section, and maybe I'll be one of them as like just so you don't, as almost as if like you don't really know which one I really am, and I'll be the kind of stereotypical cartoonist with like glasses and a beard and kind of crap hair and dorky clothes, and that'll be. Like a stereotypical cartoonist, and I'll have other stereotypical cartoonists in there as well. That's the plan.
Can't wait to see it. Do you have any plans to put this book together?
Well, I talk about it a lot, and I do write it, but I think I think I'm planning on bringing it out, but I'm trying to build up a lot of material to kind of go in between the comics, like a sort of frame narrative, and I want to get that right. I want it to be basically the most self-referential book, like making fun of like how authors present themselves, the weirdness of making a webcomic into a book, because everyone has all the comics for free already. And I just think that's a really funny phenomenon where people go, hey, those comics that I've already read and they're online, imagine if I had those on paper, that'd be great. I just think that'd be good. Or often it'll be, there's a lot of comics that are just kind of Tumblr has a big culture of this, which I kind of love and I think it's kind of funny as well. How there's lots of comics about for things like, isn't winter cold, and then in the summer it gets warm again, and then people are like, it's just like people sharing those, and I kind of like when the idea is like as a filler as the art, and then you've just got like a bit of literally content on the internet that's just literally there just to fill up the internet, and everyone shares it around, and I just find that amazing, really funny.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. But cartoonists are like required to acknowledge holidays and seasons, and
I've never done that though. Oh no, I've done Christmas.
You've done Valentine's Day as well.
I have, haven't I?
Well, and I guess we could say that you've acknowledged April Fools at least twice.
I have done it. I was going to say, I thought the only time I'd ever done it was April Fool's Day, which was kind of like almost the first time at least was making fun of April Fool's Day, I guess. And the second time I was like, you know what? I think April Fool's Day is like the webcomic day, where like a lot of websites kind of they're all trying to compete for the funniest, like most interesting April Fool's Day thing, which is why I thought it would be better if everyone was as many people as possible were in on the same thing. And I really liked, when someone suggested that idea, that was a really good way of doing it.
I personally, I absolutely love your comics. I was reading them today, and there's just so many, just brilliant ones. And I don't know, because the output at the beginning was like you maybe do one a month. So and you were in university at the time, but I'm curious if it takes a very long time to think, like to craft them, because they're so well made.
Well, I'm glad you say they're well made. I often worry, but I think I'm always. So even now, I still make. Now I've gone down to one a week, which I think I'm keeping up with and stuff, and I think I'm getting better in my schedule. Because I think the style I've just chosen, which is very self-referential, and I always want to do a joke that like would be surprising and interesting. I just as soon as I see myself doing a comic for the sake of it, filling a gap in my update schedule, and I don't like the comic, that's like the worst thing for me. So I think I'd rather have less content and more of it be good. I guess I was quite inspired by early webcomics where...
For
example, Perry Bible Fellowship.
Yes.
Famously sort of sporadic in his updating, but used to do it at one point every Friday. And that was like, Friday was Perry Bible Fellowship. And Kate Beaton, who makes Hark of Vagrant. Those two, I think, were the people who got me into webcomics. And and they just... they're like just they just make comics when they're happy with a comic they've made.
Yeah.
And so I think, that's something I can do. But now I realise they were kind of existing when the internet had a huge expansion in like 2008, 2009.
I used to read Perry Bible Fellowship in college, so it existed in 2002, like 2000, like in 2000. So it kind of predates the internet in a way. Like it was syndicated in like the weekly newspaper in my college town. So I think it was a print comic first, and then it moved to the internet. But
interesting. Yeah, I have heard that.
I see a connection between your comic and Mr. Gurowicz's.
Cool. I guess we both have a kind of we want to make a good comic, and you can sort of see that. Like you can see the kind of like this kind of not labored, like very crafted joke, which he manages to do, which I try to do. Except he's also an amazing artist, which I think he's he's got it all covered, and I've just tried to steal a little element of that.
Even the like on your Tumblr or your website, the image of the person holding the comics up to the heavens.
Yeah,
that image reminded me very much of Perry Bible Fellowship.
Oh, really? Oh, interesting. That is actually that's one of the figures that the author figures that I love. Is this kind of so do you know William Blake?
Yeah,
he's a 18th. Yeah, I'm never sure how famous he is because
Tiger Burning Bright.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So because I did English literature as my undergrad, and
did you do an overgrad?
I did not.
Okay.
I didn't do a master's. No.
Fair enough.
So I did. My main dissertation was on William Blake and Watchmen, the comic.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of similar themes and that sort of stuff.
I am not that familiar with William Blake, but if you'd like to explain your dissertation to us, this will be the first time anybody on my podcast has pitched their dissertation.
Yeah, that could be good.
What are the similarities?
Oh, yeah. Do you want to go into that?
Just a little bit, I guess.
So, both of them. So, William Blake, as well as being a poet, which is what he is and how he's famously known now, he considered himself an artist who worked with both poetry and illustration. So, really, the way you should read his work is like as a as the actual object that he made, because he made objects really, which was like a book that he would color individual every page individually, and they'd be this, there'd be the poem, but also like some of the letters will be all squiggly and they'll turn to like leaves and stuff. And then Tiger Tiger Burning Bright, for example, has like an illustration at the bottom of a tiger, but he'll often make it so it's about something different or something kind of weird to the poem. So the tiger in Tiger Tiger Burning Bright at the bottom is kind of this like weird, timid cat. And you go, the whole poem is about this kind of like fierce, like incredible creation, and then you've just made like this kind of weird timid cat. And it's very confusing.
Can I ask a question real fast?
Sure.
You did a comic about an artist thinking of a very fierce tiger, and in the last one they draw in the punchline they draw a very timid cat. Is this was that a reference to it? Or no?
That I think the way it worked was that actually, I was at the time I was rereading through a lot of William Blake stuff, and I thought, oh, that's really funny. That is it. People assume that he just can't draw tigers, as if he's not. I was like, he's one of the greatest artists, like English artists that's ever lived. And they go, but he probably couldn't draw a tiger, so that's why it looks like that. And I just thought that was quite funny that he's this like famously like, I'm a prophet, I'm like this incredible visionary thing, and he's just drawn this like crappy little kind of timid looking cat. Anyway, the similarities between him and William and Alan Moore's work with Watchmen is, so William Blake is very comic-y in that he loves like juxtaposition between like word and like image. So I think it's a big influence on a lot of like comic writers like Alan Moore. And William Blake has a lot of things about time, about how linear time is an illusion. Everything happened in a single moment. This like he calls it eternity. That's like single tiny moment. And then in our perception, we kind of lay it out. So one thing happens sequentially, like one after another, like sequentially. And he thought that once you realize that everything has already happened and is currently happening, then you kind of achieve this kind of like nirvana kind of state. Alan Moore loves that stuff, like, and being a comic artist where you literally lay out time sequentially, it's really interesting. And the character of Dr. Manhattan in Watchmen, he perceives time in that way. He's a kind of like Blakean god. He's like Superman, but like a Blakean god. So he perceives time as as happening, all in one moment, like having already happened. So when Dr. Manhattan has a flashback, he is literally in both places. Like it's not a flashback. It's him being in both places at the same time. Anyway, that's what I did my dissertation on.
Actually, both times at the same time.
Yeah, he's at both times at the same time. Yeah, the weird thing with William Blake is for him, eternity, which is the single moment, is also a place you can go to, but that just takes a whole other jump of imagination.
Isn't that, from what I understand, the current thinking of space and time being the same thing?
I don't know. He was ahead of his time, as I say.
So, if all moments in time coexist, all moments in space coexist. If eternity is the name for all time, which I think it's a good name, what would be the name of all space? Just the universe, or
no, eternity. As in, it's a singularity. It's the same. Which in comics, I guess, is a similar thing I often play with. Like, time is space in comics, as in. You go through time as in while reading through space. So you go, from one panel to the next one. That's you going through time, and also through space. And then I often have this joke that I kind of keep coming back to, which is the fact that you're reading panels, and those are like units of time, but also you're looking at a page, which is one picture made up of however many panels. Which I think is really funny, and a weirdness that I keep coming back to. And that's William Blake. That's just what he does.
That was wonderful. Yeah. I'm really glad that you told me about you did a wonderful job. So before I get to writing, I do talk about the look of a comic. And what I tend to do is I ask people, could you describe your comics to someone who's never seen them before? So that they could like pick them out. Like if you showed them 3 comics based off of your description, could they say, oh, this must be yours?
Okay. So I guess the main thing of mine is, simple. Like they're very, like kind of simple line drawings, with kind of cute-ish characters. Very simple, kind of flat characters. And then they're kind of girly, is my main thing I always go for. So lots of pink, lots of purple, hearts, flowers, but also with like kind of creepy hands is also a thing I do. And kind of creepy eyes and whatnot. And they are almost always 3 panels by 3 panels.
Okay.
Well, 3 panels by 2 panels, kind of square panels. That's a big feature. Yeah. Well, what do you think? Because I
agree with everything you said. I feel like the colors are a bit bright. Like they're very bright colors. You said they were girly, but like the intensity of purple is like they're so vibrant as to almost be aggressive.
Yeah, good. That's kind of. I was thinking kind of like like kids' drawings, like if you were to think of like a child's drawing. And the purple came about because I always hated purple growing up. Never liked purple for some reason.
But now as an adult,
yeah, and then I just came to love it because I was watching Adventure Time, which I love, and the colors in that are incredible. And there was an episode where there's a fire, and there's the shadows. So you have like sort of like yellowish kind of the light on their faces is like yellowish, obviously, because it's from a fire, which means the shadows, because they're still very colourful in Adventure Time, they don't use any many blacks and stuff. That it was purple, and I was like, oh wow, that's an incredible way of making it so that it's both dark and still very vibrant, very colourful. So I think I always have the backdrops being purple, because then they end up being the other colours really stand out against them, but still feels like a big kind of just color in your face, that kind of vibe.
You said that they're cute-ish.
Yes, I was kind of going for cute mashed with creepy.
Yeah, no, you got there.
It's good.
There is a little creepy.
Yeah, I guess creepy is. Yeah, I think my comics growing up, like when I was a teenager, I think as a lot of teenagers' drawings are, like got a lot more like they're kind of dark, and the kind of creepiness of them. I kind of wasn't thinking about it because you as a teenager you just draw things, and I kind of developed this whole like long hands kind of, and there's lots of shading, and it was all kind of very scribbly, and it was just felt, and looking back at them, they're just creepy and nothing else. And I think that's like, which is a bit horrible. So I thought, I'd mash them together with like, this kind of cuteness, which is very big at the moment. I think we'll look back at this era of like of art in the last like sort of 10 years and go, oh yeah, that kind of like very flat, kind of cute looking simplicity will be like very, a sort of will make our era sort of stand out. But I kind of mashed that with a kind of weird creepiness.
And then also you said something about the paneling. There's certainly 3 panels, but do you mean there are either going to be 3, 6, or 9? Like the...
Yeah. So I kind of always I try to have always have like 3 panels. So sometimes they're 3 panels long. Sometimes they're 6 panels long. And sometimes they're 9 panels long. Sometimes they're 12 panels long. But I try to keep this kind of unit of 3 going. Mm-hmm. For a while, I would like mix it up and make it so maybe they were 1 panel or like wide and then just very long, because I was thinking about it, and I was thinking on the internet you have an infinite, well, you used to at least have this infinite downward space and a very limited horizontal space.
Yeah.
So I mean, there goes that like a comic, you can make it, if you make it sort of narrow, like narrower than it is long, then it means that it's easier to read, right? And it means that the writing ends up being like large and stuff. Since my audience has grown, I don't really think about that as much. I don't really worry about whether people are going to read it or not. I just want to make like good comics, and I think it'll still reach people who will share it and stuff and enjoy it. Now I just go, okay, yeah, it's 3 panels long, and people can just kind of like deal with that, I guess.
All right. Well, here's how I get into the writing section, because we're already there. Cool. I start with the last comic you did, and then we're going to talk about the next comic you're going to do. So what was the last comic that you wrote or you published?
The last comic I published was, I think it was it was a recurring character comic.
Yes, which we should explain to the people listening. that the recurring character is the name of the character, and they are a
Yes.
recurring character.
And the joke there was that I didn't have any recurring characters at the time.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, not really. And I was like, oh, I want to have a recurring character to kind of like, have this kind of continuing, the jokes are funny when you have a joke that's just like, just ended, and then you can imagine that character going through their life and just like think these things are happening to them all the time. And also it's good because people like seeing the same character again. They go, oh, look, it's this character that I am familiar with. And then in a classic fashion that I do, I kind of sabotage myself by I thought, oh, it'd be funny if it was the worst character I could possibly make, which is just like a kind of personalityless, awkwardly drawn character and she's very like I kind of stretched her out so that the words recurring character can fit on her t-shirt, like they wouldn't fit on normally. So I just made her really wide.
Okay.
That's why she looks the way she does. And she has this she has feet, like her like crotch is basically like, I guess it would be about, if you're in real life, it'd be about 4 foot wide, and then just two legs just on either side.
Yeah.
That was kind of the joke there, just that she was just bad. And her only feature is that she recurs, is that she's like an ongoing feature in the comic.
All right, so you've set up the recurring character, but I need you to recount the story of this comic, and if you can do it as like quickly or as efficiently or as much like a joke as possible.
Sure. Okay. Right, so recurring character is on a desert island.
Yes.
And she goes, oh no, like I'm on a desert island. No, she's like, oh great, I'm on a desert island, like that, that classic comic cliche. And then what always happens in desert island comics, or like cartoons, is something will happen to that character that would normally be helpful, but isn't in that situation. So that maybe they'll, or it'll just like heighten the fact that they're like deserted. So I think Gary Larson does a lot of them. Anyway, yeah. So that's kind of the joke that I'm playing with.
So what shows up?
And then a package shows up, and she goes, "Okay, I'm just going to open it so that the comic's over. Like the punchline has happened." And then she looks at the thing, and it says 5 extra panels, and she goes, "Okay, I'm just going to open this because then the comic's over." But then the joke is that she opens the package, and then there's 5 extra panels, as in her comic lasts 5 panels more. And then, so yeah, the joke is that she's there for longer. And then I kind of added an extra joke in it, which is there's a caption inside as well, like a bonus, like, oh no, you've got an extra caption, and the caption says 10 years later. So attached to the 5th panel that's already out of the comic is the caption 10 years later. So she's 1 year later.
1 year later.
Yeah, I originally it was 10 years, and I was like, is that excessive? What's funnier? 1 year or 10 years? I thought 10 years was a bit too long.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's like, is she older now?
Yeah.
1 year is...
You made the right choice.
Yeah, thanks.
So the last panel is 1 year later.
It's 1 year later, and she just goes, and then that's the punchline.
And in classic Dorris McComics style, I believe there's a single teardrop, right?
Yes, but now it's become I just work towards that now.
Yeah, no, we have to talk about that, but that's going to fall under all of the themes that I've diagnosed. Okay, wonderful job. So Dorris McComics, recurring character. She's on a desert island. A package shows up. The package contains 5 extra panels, and then, if I recall correctly, she looks at the box, and there's like kind of like an advertisement on the box or whatever you call it, and it says, with a caption included.
Yeah.
And the caption is 1 year later.
Yeah.
It's a good one.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. Now I can just write a recurring character comic by just going, what's she doing this time? She's on a desert island, that'd be funny. And then just going through the motions of like, what would be a bad thing to happen to her. So now she's quite easy to write now, which I love. Like I like having a recurring character.
I'm surprised that for your comics that the recurring character recurred. It seemed like you would have done just a one shot.
Yeah.
With recurring character.
Follow through with some jokes. You can't always subvert everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting that people seem to really respond well to recurring character. Like they're like, oh yeah, I love recurring character, which I guess just kind of is proof that the thing I thought where people just like recurring characters because they like seeing the same thing over and over again, that's kind of true. But really the whole point is that she's just like, she's kind of a bad person to have in a comic all the time because she just doesn't really want to be there.
Yeah.
And yeah. Anyway, I'm glad people are like, are enjoying recurring character because she'd be there whether they liked it or not. And that would be the joke for me, at least, would be like, people hate this. Why is it there? So...
Okay, well let's talk about the next comic you're going to make. Do you know what it is, and when do you have to do it?
So I was making it just now, back then today.
While we were talking, that's kind of rude.
Yeah, it wasn't. No, I can't multitask at all.
Can you tell me how this conversation ends? Because I feel like you already written it. Like,
yeah, yeah. I say goodbye, and then no. So yeah, basically, what's what I'm doing today? Oh yeah, this is kind of a weird one. So I drew. So basically, how I normally keep notes and how I write and stuff is I have like I probably have like I must have like 100 sketchbooks now. Like I have so many tiny like sketchbooks, and I just like fill them full of stuff. And then I finish them, and then I go to another one. I've been doing it for like years, but only recently they've become like good. Before that, they were just like full of rubbish. Like when I was a teenager, it's still interesting to go through. And so now I can like normally just like think of a comic and just write it in full on my page. But sometimes I go back through them out of interest and just sort of like pick out ideas that I just wrote down that never went anywhere.
From sketchbooks.
Yeah, from I have like little tiny ones, like little sort of A6 ones, and I have like sort of A4 ones and whatever. And I have quite a lot on the go at a time. And yes, and yeah, I went through one the other day, and there was just a picture of like I draw like a sort of generic person is often a sort of like figure in my comics. So I drew like a sort of generic person with like a head and arms and legs and stuff. And then I was like, how would I draw someone naked? Like, am I going to do that and everything? And so I think that must have been my thought process. And I just wrote the word genitals and crotch. Instead, like I love replacing things with the word that they are. Like I had a joke the other day where it was just like, oh no, I haven't released that one yet. But yeah, it's replacing the word a person with the word person, and that being a character. So this one's just like just replacing the genitals with the word genitals, and then I have like those two characters. Like how sex works, like in a weird sex education video, and the two word genitals.
Yeah. One word. Oh, really? Like one word enters the other word.
So basically, what happens is they kind of just jumble up because I was like, these are two like genderless characters almost. Like they could be both same gender, opposite genders, whatever. And so there's like genitals just going to go mashed up. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. And then and I was just like, oh, I'm going to look up what a funny
anagram
of those of like the word both two words genitals would be, and I found one that was tingliest lasagna. They make the tingliest lasagna.
That's beautiful.
And that's the joke.
Man, I'm so glad. Often when I ask people to tell me their next joke, I can't react. Like I don't know how to react. There's a lot of pressure to react when somebody tells you a joke, obviously.
But I think a lot of people seem to have this humor that like they use comics very well in that it doesn't make sense or isn't as funny when you describe it, whereas mine are very like mechanical kind of joke machines.
Yeah. I can tell that one. I mean, that's so good because I don't know. I like words. I like the fact that you looked up the word genitals 2 times.
Yeah. And
then the anagram of that.
I'm glad that someone else did the work for me, and I can just steal their anagram sorting website. That was that's the next joke I'm doing. Kind of different to the other stuff I do, I guess. But I never covered sex before.
Sure, yeah, but it's sex is strange and weird and absurd, and that's why it shows up in comedy so much. Is because there's a lot of awkwardness and there's a lot of disgust, I think, associated with sex. Like it's just a strange, and you're not allowed to talk about it, which makes people obviously want to talk about it.
I know. I think I'm going to cover sex like more in depth in a future project of some sort because it's very funny.
Yeah.
The way, and I think the most like Dorris McComics-y way I could play with it is that comic where it's just like sex, but like 2 times removed from what people actually are and
Yeah.
what sex actually is. You know, it's like it's basically just It's like what if drawings had sex and whatever. That's what would happen.
The next thing is something which I had forgotten to do with everybody, but it's a thing that I've started doing where I isolate themes in people's comics. So I think the best way to do this is, what do you think the themes are? Like, try to guess what's on my list, actually.
Yeah.
I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things written down. Just,
Ooh. I always wonder what people think.
and they're very simple themes. They're not really themes about writing. They're actually, most of them are themes in imagery.
Okay. Oh, so yeah, like recurring symbols and stuff.
Yeah.
I'd say so. Self-referential metaness, like that.
That's more writing. This is an
arts thing.
I didn't even write that down because I feel like that goes without saying. Self-referential.
Yeah, sure. So the crying face, crying.
Yeah, I got tears.
Yeah, tears. I love that. I love the kind of like sad punchline.
Mm-hmm.
That's just my favorite thing. So just a kind of like deflation at the end. Oh.
But I am Pagliacci.
Yeah. And then, what else? Would you say hands? Is that one?
Yep.
Is one. Oh, good. Yeah, because I was wondering, do people notice that my attention that goes into hands?
I didn't notice them until today, but they're all over it. Like you.
Yeah. Like I just wanted my comics to be like this. Sorry, you can't see that on the radio, but basically it's all hands and face. And if you can see my hands, if I describe them, they're quite big and like long.
Yeah.
That's what all the hands look like. It's like these big long hands, just like covering people's faces and just being very expressive. Kind of like in do you ever, like paintings, like what era is it? Like all throughout kind of art history. You know, you have these like kind of like Renaissance paintings where the hands will always be like very poised. Yeah, and they'll if they're holding their hand up in the air, all of the like fingers will be displayed in this like perfect way.
Because it's the most interesting. It's most visual interest.
Yeah, most visually, and so I just love it's just strange, and I love like making it so the hands look like that, but in a kind of weird little cartoon.
Yeah, okay, I get it. So we got hands, we got tears. What else?
I would say the cat. Did you put the cat in it?
I didn't write it down, but I noticed it for sure.
Yeah, I don't know where the cat really came from. I just thought it'd be a cute little character.
It doesn't seem to have any specific, like, it wasn't important enough for me to write it down.
I'm going to make it important in later comics.
Cool.
I'm going to tie it into whatever I'm doing. What else? I guess. What about over the shoulder looking at stuff?
Mm-mm.
I don't know. No.
Didn't notice that. Give me one more shot, and then I'll spare you the misery.
Things that things that I do in my comics.
Yeah.
How about vision, like eyes? Is that one?
Eyes. Yes, eyes.
Eyes. Yeah. Just like
all the time.
Sorry?
All the time, eyes. Yeah.
Yeah. I think just eyes and hands.
All right. So,
what did you think?
Early on there was a lot of puking.
There was a lot. Actually, I forgot about that. I should get back to that. That was a good time.
So, and there was blood. A couple of times there was reference to blood turning to snakes, which I thought was a weird idea.
Comic. I wasn't really sure I was doing it at that sort of time. I was just like, I guess it'd be funny if your blood was made of snakes.
Mm-hmm. It would be.
That's a joke.
But if you've got blood, tears, and puke, there's fluids. There's like a lot of bodily fluid.
I think they still have this kind of like bodily thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of I really kind of realized this recently. Like, my comics are all either like, you look at a comic and you kind of cut that up and think about all the little elements of that, and also looking at someone's body and kind of cutting that up and looking at all the things that's made of.
Yeah.
I guess it's the same thing. I don't know what that says about me, but just that I like kind of chopping things up.
If it weren't for comics, that you'd be like a serial killer.
Well, that is the only thing to deduce from it, I'd say.
All right. Well, the next section's pretty straightforward. It's just who do you like? We've mentioned Kate Beaton and Nick Gurewitch and I forget somebody else, but they don't really need any help.
Yeah.
I guess I shouldn't even say that, but like, fuck them. Who do you like to read? Who are the young people whose comics you really enjoy? Who are you reading?
The young people.
Our generation.
Yeah, so I have this weird thing with webcomics where I kind of tend to avoid reading a lot of webcomics because I get so self-conscious how like kind of good everyone is. Who am I really liking? I love people I really love are you've read Death Bulge with Dan Martin.
Yep.
I mean Dan lives in London now, so I've got to know him quite well. But for ages, I've just thought like he was doing kind of similar stuff to me, like quite like weirdly like ambitious, or like he was, but he just really like locks it down way better than I could. And his like artwork is just amazing. I think
it's very good. His April Fools had dynamic camera angles.
Yeah. I said to him, I was like, please open this with someone kicking open a door. Because I love that all of his comics open with just someone kicking up a door, which I just love as a metaphor for like something starting.
Yeah.
Someone just comes into a room. It's kind of like Kramer in Seinfeld.
Uh-huh.
I'm in the room now, and now the comic started. So I love Death Bulge.
Dan Martin, The Death Bulge.
I love. Do you know Ruby, etc.?
No.
So Ruby's like I think she mainly focuses on Tumblr.
Okay.
And she's like big on Tumblr. She has like a Facebook following and stuff. I think she's kind of feels like an outsider to like a lot of people who are very active with talking to each other, as a lot of webcomic people are on the internet. Her stuff is like she updates like all the time, sometimes several times a day in the past. She'll just draw these very quick little comics. They're all very small and very like and I kind of like this as a kind of way that I kind of envy, like just putting out a sheer amount of content that's all very good and very like she has a very shrewd kind of sense of humor that's very like kind of grumpy and kind of self-deprecating, but also kind of uplifting in a weird way as well.
So Ruby etc. is the name of the artist and the cartoon?
Ruby is the name of the artist, and Ruby etc. is Ruby plus other stuff, I guess.
Is it etc. all spelled out, the whole word?
No, it's Ruby etc.
Okay. I think it's funny that etc. is a word that we don't even spell out, right?
Yeah, that's a good one. No, I never thought of that. That is great.
All right, so we got Ruby etc. We got Dan Martin of Death Bulge. Anybody else?
Other people I really like. So, have you ever seen the artist? She's called Iguana Mouth.
Could you repeat that?
Iguana Mouth.
Iguana, again, like the animal iguana?
Like I guess I say iguana. You say iguana. Yeah.
Iguana math.
Iguana Mouth.
Mouth.
The reason I'm saying this is because I think like she's got a huge following on Tumblr. Like I'm not massively into Tumblr, but I like that so many artists like kind of have a big following there. And Iguana Mouth, she's called Lauren, I think. And I've never actually spoken to her, but I want to. But I'm kind of in awe of her, so that's why I haven't. She is just the most incredible artist I've like ever seen on the internet. Like honestly, she's phenomenal. And she draws these things called like dragon hoards, where it'll be like, and you can commission them. So it'll be like a hoard of books, or a hoard of fish, or a hoard, whatever you're into, really, a hoard of birds. So these dragons like hoarded all these things, and it'll be like just a drawing, and it's just like incredibly well drawn. But she also has like comics that are like very silly comics, like like any webcomic artist would do. And she just kind of takes her like incredible art style and then just like makes it really crap, if you know what I mean. Like kind of just has this like fluency of making things like just filler characters that are just like people with like two eyes and a mouth, like two dots and a line, and they're sort of standing there and they're saying stuff. And I just think she's really good. But she's not even that small. She's really big, but in a very specific, a very tiny area.
Well, I haven't heard of her, so it's great to discover a new artist.
She doesn't have a Twitter. She doesn't have Facebook or anything. It's just all Tumblr.
Well, it is honestly my pleasure to talk to you today because I like I said, I read your comics today and I just kept loving all of them. Like I've always loved them from afar. Like every time I see them, I like them. But today was the first time I went and read them in bulk, and they're just so good. It's just
Glad you like them.
Yeah. I mean, I know how awkward it is to be complimented, but
yeah, I'm trying not to go. No, shut up.
But you can feel good about what you do in the world.
Cool, good, yes.
Oh well, I'm running out of steam. I could talk to you forever.
I know, so I'm just Gemini. But yeah, thanks so much. It's been really nice.
Yeah.
A lovely talk.
Yeah, and I'll see you soon.
Yeah, see you at Boston. Or I'll speak to you before.
Okay. Thanks again to Alex for talking to me, and thanks to you for listening. Please take the time to like, comment, and share the episode. It helps other people find it, which is good for us. The next episode will feature the lovely artist Mikiko Ponsek, so look out for that. If there are artists that you would like to hear featured on the show, I always welcome the suggestion, so go ahead and send them right to me. Well, until next time, guys. Bye-bye.